Flourless, chocolate, low sugar, no carb? What is even happening? Hi, welcome to Cake Mom. I'm Abby. This is Emery. That's Aaliyah. And on this channel, I share with you guys some of my tips and techniques as well as recipes to help you with your home baking projects. And if you're new to this channel, please consider subscribing and hitting the notifications bell so that you guys can see when we post our next video. Today I wanted to make for you a cake that is very diet friendly. One of my most requested cake ideas has been something for the keto diet. And this cake is perfect for it. This is a cake that I have been making for gluten-sensitive people. It is not something that I invented for the keto diet, but it works perfectly. So it's also great for if you are gluten intolerant, if you are sugar sensitive, or heavy cream or dairy sensitive. It does have butter in it, but if you're milk sensitive, this cake is great. And it's chocolate, so it's a win-win. Yes. So a very important part of this recipe is your pan. It has to be prepared the correct way or your cake won't turn out. This cake, because it's got no flour, because it's got a very tender structure, you really can't afford it to be sticking to your pan at all. So this is going to be completely parchment lined. So this is also going to be going into a bain-marie or a pan with some water in it. So we have to secure the outside so our cake doesn't get any water in it. So we're going to start with greasing it. This butter wrapper. I always use butter wrappers because why waste? This is so that the parchment paper will stick. That's why I'm doing this. You can either cut your own parchment paper, or if you have a parchment paper round, that's what I'm going to use because it's easier. And what you want is you want it to overlay a little bit. So if you're using a 9-inch round, you don't want to use a 9-inch circle. Put your pan on top. Close it up, and that'll kind of give you a little bit of a seal. Not much of one, but don't worry, we're gonna seal the outside. All right, for the edges, you grab your regular parchment paper. Those are big people scissors. Inside is secure, now let's secure the outside. So take some saran wrap or plastic wrap, depending on where you're from, and we're going to seal the outside. So we're going to set the pan on top and then cover it with a layer of aluminum foil. You want to put the outer layer as aluminum foil just to give it one more layer of protection from the water that's going to be in the bain-marie, because like I said, this is a very sensitive cake. So the water's probably going to get up to about halfway up the pan, so you want your aluminum foil to at least get that high. If it doesn't, put on another piece of it. So, this cake, we have eggs, chocolate, butter, coffee, salt, and an optional 6th, which is vanilla. I love to put vanilla in this cake. I don't have any today, but you should add it because that's part of the recipe. What we're doing with our eggs is we're going to be creating this magnificent egg foam. And in order to do that, we want to make sure our mixer has no fat on it because this will prohibit the foam from happening. So what we're going to do to make sure that doesn't happen, we're going to take a little bit of white vinegar, paper towel, just kind of wipe down your mixer, and it won't taste like vinegar, I promise, but the vinegar will get the fat off. So the final step before actually starting making this cake is you want to have everything measured out and weighed out before you start it, because everything goes really fast on this cake and it all has to be the right temperature when you combine it. So we've got our eggs and we'll crack them in a second, but first we're going to weigh out 1 pound of chocolate. Now this is where your recipe will vary some.
I'll open it.
Okay, I'll let you open it. I have chosen a pretty dark chocolate. This is a 60%. Just keep in mind that this is the only sugar going into this cake. So if you take all the sugar out completely, it's going to be a very bitter cake. We're going to put it into a bowl with 1 cup of unsalted butter. That's my preference. You can use salted if you want to. And to that, you're going to add 1/4 cup of a very strong coffee. The coffee will make your chocolate taste more chocolatey, and it'll give kind of like a little oomph to your cake. And now we're going to add a pinch of salt.
I'll do it.
You want to do it?
Yeah.
Now Mommy's going to do a little pinch too.
That's a lot.
Just a little bit more. Now, if you were using salted butter, don't add the salt. So this is going to go onto a double boiler. It's going to melt, and it's going to be kind of warm, but you don't want it super hot. So keep a good eye on it, keep stirring it, and then pull it off to cool. And then we'll get started on our eggs. So we've been whipping our eggs for about 10 minutes and they have nearly tripled in volume.
Vanilla.
You've essentially made this egg foam. It's not vanilla, it's just eggs, Emery.
Is it vanilla?
It might have even quadrupled in size. This is very voluminous.
Boomanoop.
You say voluminous?
Voluminous.
That's good, good job. So you're gonna fold this egg mixture into this chocolate mixture in about 3 parts. You want to be very careful. You don't want to deflate your eggs too much, but you need to thoroughly combine it. You don't want it streaky in any way, or else you won't have an even finish on your cake. This mixture is now about room temperature, maybe slightly warmer. You don't really want it to be too cold at this point. It's better if it's a little bit warm than if it's too cold. So help me put some of this in there. That's good. Woo, stop. All right. Good, good.
Is it foamy? Oh, it's sturdy.
Well, Mommy's gonna do this part because this is where we have to make sure it's careful. So now, as you can see, it doesn't have any streaks. It's pretty smooth. It's very fluffy still. And we're going to pour this into our prepared pan. Ready? So now we are going to bake this cake in a 325-degree oven. So at this point, you can use pretty much any roasting pan you have that's high enough on the walls. I'm going to use a 12-inch cake pan. I'm going to set my 8-inch springform down inside and fill water up to about half of the product inside of the pan. So what this is doing is it is creating a very even and consistent bake on our flourless chocolate cake. Without this, it just won't work. You will need a bain-marie for this one. So this goes on the bottom rack of your oven, as far down as you can get it to go, at 325 degrees Fahrenheit for approximately 22 to 25 minutes, or until a digital thermometer reads 140 degrees and the edges are just starting to set and the top has a little crust on it. You still want this cake to jiggle. Honestly, it won't look like it's done, but you really don't want it overbaked. It will have a very rough and weird texture. So, 140 degrees and you'll be on point. Then you will remove it from the oven and leave it to cool on a wire rack until it is completely cooled. Then we're going to wrap it in plastic wrap, just the pan, throw it in the refrigerator overnight before we try to top this baby. It has to be done the day before, whenever you want to serve it. So make sure you plan it out in advance. We'll talk about our toppings in a second. We'll be back. So our cake has been refrigerating overnight. It is completely set up, and now we're going to make our toppings to complete our cake. We're going to make a ganache, but I prefer to make my ganache with coconut cream or coconut milk. So we got equal parts chocolate, which is the darker chocolate, and coconut cream, which the coconut cream that I like to use is just this coconut milk. This is my preference. So we're gonna go get that started, and we'll show you when we're done.
Ow!
Yeah, you gotta be careful. Okay?
Hit my face a little bit. That's okay.
So here's our cake right out of the fridge. As you can see, it's nice and firm. And you want this to be really cold when you do this part, so take it right out of the fridge. So basically, what we want to do at this point is we are going to cover this in our ganache. And the best way to do this, I have found, is to put it on a cooling rack on a pan that's been wrapped in plastic wrap. The reason for the plastic wrap is you can save your extra ganache, and the reason for the pan and the cooling rack is less mess. You can either leave it like this, you'll have a little bit of a thicker coat on top. If you want a little bit less, you can either use an offset spatula or you can kind of just shake it a little bit, but I'm gonna kind of smear it a little bit. You want to do it while it's still warm so that you'll still get a nice finish.
May I lick it? I'll lick it.
All right, so there's my flourless chocolate cake. If you cut this cake into 10 pieces, one serving would run you about 48 grams of fat, 38 grams of carbohydrates, 8 grams of protein, and 22 grams of sugar. If you do it without the ganache, it's a little bit less than that. And if you are trying to be a little bit healthier, you could add coconut oil instead of butter to make your fat source a little bit better. I like to top this with some fresh whipped cream, some fruit. You could also do a salted caramel sauce. There's just so much you could do with this, but this is how I like to serve it. And I hope you've enjoyed this recipe. If you liked it, please leave a comment below if you have any tips. Let me know, I want to hear from you guys. If you like this video, please consider subscribing and hitting the notifications bell so you can see when we post our next video.
Bye-bye.
Bye.